Hey, Lordy, look at the time.
Empowered.
Yeah. No, so yeah, welcome back to another episode of the M-PWRD podcast. Today we are joined by Joe Mclean. I will let you tell everyone a little bit about what you do so that then we'll get into it.
Hello, mate. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm a business owner. I own a gym in Heaton, which you know very well. I've been a personal trainer for 11 years and going into some other industries at the minute, so got quite a lot going on.
Nice. Fair enough. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the gym because it's a bit of a unique scenario with the gym that you've got. Obviously, you've been there for 3 years now. Is that right?
Four
years. 4.5.
5. Yeah, nearly 5.
Wow.
2018 it was.
That's crazy, isn't it? Because 2018 feels like 2 years ago, but actually it's not.
Aye.
It's like 5 years ago.
Obviously, with the at the time in that, I lost a couple of years with COVID.
With lockdown.
So yeah, it feels like 3, but it's been actually 4.5.
Awesome. So just giving everyone a little bit of backstory on your gym and how it kind of works and stuff. So James, who we had on this podcast not that long ago, I think he was episode 4 or maybe something like that. So yeah, James Garrity first opened that place as a gym, kind of probably like 3 years before you had it. And then he kind of passed it on to me, and then somebody else had it for a couple of months, and now it's you. So it's actually been a gym for.
It's been passed down.
Yeah,
it's been passed down
generations.
The Newcastle fitness industry, like.
Yeah, it has, but it's the church, as it's referred to as.
So it's an old church building, which I'd like to thank James for producing the leisure license, because I didn't have to go through any of that hassle. So big shout, James Garrity. But yeah, so he's obviously passed it on to you. You and Rich had it as Amplify. Mm-hmm. It was then BB Fitness. A lad called Joe had that, and then I took it over. Then when it was BB Fitness, it was a MMA place.
Yes.
So it was literally just matting, like an empty room with matting, a few dumbbells and stuff. And then I've made it into Body Hacks Fitness, which it is today. And then I've recently just renovated it as well. So
yes.
I've done a load to the building. Obviously, with it being an old building and stuff, I've had to do a load of like background stuff, full rewires, and so the stuff that you see that I've done isn't even half of kind of what I've had to do. But the buildings, it was an absolute goldmine when I got it. Like I say, it already had all the licenses. I didn't have, because normally they would take like 6 months to go ahead.
To change of usage and things like that.
Yeah, so I didn't have to apply for any of that. It was just already ready to go. And then the way I've developed it is when I started, I was trying to do everything, and I didn't really have the network or the backing then to do what I'm doing now. So I started off with, I was trying to do everything, and then I decided, look, it wasn't working. Because I was doing public members at the time, I worked out that actually if I was in there all day, because of the amount of members I had at the time, it was actually 60 pence per month per member.
Right.
So imagine what that is per hour, do you know?
Yeah.
For how many hours I was having to put into it for what I was getting in return. So then I decided to just flip the business model and scale it back to a private facility. So it was for private personal training, boot camp, group sessions, which worked really well. I sort of took myself away from the competition a little bit. Yeah. And just kind of like niched it a little bit. And then, 4.5 years later, I've finally, sort of feel like I've got the network and the backing and the amount of PTs that I've needed and whatever else to then flip the model back into a public facility.
Yeah. It's such a nice gym. It's such a good location. I feel like it's, obviously now you've probably had it more than all of us put together combined in terms of the time. So obviously, you've made a real good go of it, and it's good to see that it's kind of still there and like obviously growing as well. So now you've got, you've just opened it back up to the public, which is really good to see. And I like what you said there, that there's a slight analogy there for business, that you've spent all that money, but half of it people can't see because it's like work that you've done on the building and stuff. And I think that's one of the things that shocks people when they get into business.
Yeah, I always say that, like, it's 10 years of hard work for that one good year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same of what had happened there is, you know, I'd spent like 20 grand before people had even realised. It was only when I got the lick of paint that everyone was starting to see that it was changing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you're not seeing what else I've done, but obviously no one sees it that way.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that there's a lot more goes into any business than what meets the eye.
Yeah.
And I think to succeed in that, you've kind of got to accept that there's going to be a lot more failure than there would successes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think you've had quite an interesting route into the fitness industry, talking about what we were speaking about the other day, just about obviously most people get into personal training because they've kind of, usually because they've always been in good shape and stuff like that. So do you want to just talk a little bit about your route into the fitness industry and stuff?
Yeah, so I was morbidly obese when I was a child. When I was 10, I was the same weight I am now,
Right.
Which is mental because obviously
You're a fully grown man
grew
now.
a, grew a canny bit since then.
Yeah.
Like. But so it was just through, you know, it was probably through more lack of knowledge growing up, and kind of at that time there was no education around health, especially with kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I was playing a decent level sport as well. So I had a realization when I was 13 that I wasn't going to get where I wanted to go in sport if I didn't do something about my fitness.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then that was kind of the spark to then what led to the rest of it. Was it started with sport, and then I just I'd lost 7 stone in 6 months.
That's crazy.
As I grew taller as well. I mean, if you look at the figures, you know, I think I was 5'8" when I started losing weight. I'm 6'1" now. So like, if you look at the figures on how my weight should have actually increased,
Yeah.
and I'd lost 7 stone at that time, it probably would have been about
Your
9
BMI
stone.
would have been absolutely flying down at a crazy rate as you're getting taller and lighter at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So it probably would have worked out. I lost about 9 stone if I'd have
So
stayed
how
the
old were you
same
when you
height.
started losing weight? 13?
13. By the time I was 14, I'd lost 7 stone.
Because as well, obviously, when you were 13, there wasn't the social media that there is now as well. So what was it that kind of triggered you to start losing weight? Obviously, you can understand now 13-year-olds and younger have got access to all of these different body types and access to all of this information and pressure and whatnot. Back in the day, there wasn't
That
that.
wasn't a thing, not
So
at all.
what was it that kind of spurred you on?
Well, like I say, it started with the sport. Do you know what it was actually? I remember it was the last day of year 9, which I think you're 12 and 13 in year 9.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
13, 14.
Last day, there was an incident. So I got quite heavily bullied, and there was an incident with like a couple of lasses that that were on the bus. I would get home and stuff, and I remember getting back and like getting really down about it, like, you know, crying. And then I looked in the mirror and I thought, do you know what? Like, this is it. I'm going to go back after that summer holiday and be a complete different person. And that was that's what sparked off the motivation. But then the discipline came from actually just falling in love with working on myself. And I think that's carried through now. That's why I put processes in place to push myself every single day. And I think it's down to that. I didn't know anything about, like you say, there was no science or anything. Well, the science wasn't as developed as what it is now.
Yeah.
And the information certainly wasn't
Readily available. Yeah, of course.
available, yeah. So I kind of just spitballed it on what I'd learned from, you know, like certain sports I was in, or, you know, just what I thought would be best.
Yeah.
And it did get a bit obsessive at one point. So I basically went from being morbidly obese to dangerously underweight between a 2-year spell, which I think, on a side note, helps me with clients because I kind of know how people feel on both ends of the scale.
Spectrum. Okay.
But yeah, that was the catalyst was the sport and the bullying, and then the consistency was just the fact that I started to really enjoy the process.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that you have to end up loving the process, otherwise you'll never kind of stick at anything.
Massively in business, right? You'll know yourself, right? You wake up every day with a fire in your belly. You wake up excited to go and challenge yourself and see what the day will bring. I've just said before, like the best thing about being self-employed or running a business is the fact that you can wake up on any given day and make as much or as little money as you want. There's, you know, other people don't have that freedom. And I think that excitement of that chase is what will help people succeed in business and fitness.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously, you know, I speak about it quite a lot, but there's a lot of synonyms between fitness and business, and that's been my experience. And I think that quite often when you meet people who are successful in either of those areas of life, you know, a lot of those traits carry on to each other. So, you know, you find that a lot of successful people in business have got strict fitness regimes, or they've got at least strict health regimes, because they can see the crossover and, you know, enjoying the process, you know, sticking to something that you can't see instant results. They all play into the same. You know, if you go and do a gym session, you're not going to see any physical results that day, probably not that week, probably not that month. You know, it takes time. After a couple of months, yeah, you'll start seeing it. If you have a really good day, you know, posting on social media for your business, doing all the right things that you need to for marketing, you're not going to see results that day, maybe not that week, probably not even that month. And it's the same. You've got to trust in the process in both of those things, and they quite often play into one another. Massively.
I did a podcast on Friday, and it was literally about that. Like everything you just said there was exactly what I was trying to get across. Is it was about the link between fitness and business, and how that crosses over. And they were expecting me to talk about the hormonal benefits and the productivity and endorphin release, and I just flipped it straight back to what you just said there. I said I'm going to talk about discipline, and I'm going to talk about chipping away each day and not seeing results, and accepting failure.
Yeah, delayed gratification.
Yeah, massively. I always use the toilet roll analogy.
Right. Okay. What's that?
So if you had a bog roll, right, and you pulled one piece off every day, you wouldn't see that roll going down.
No, probably not.
Right, but eventually that roll will be an empty roll if you just keep pulling away each day. And that's kind of how it is in fitness. That's how it is in business, is you just got to do the right things daily. Yes, you'll have hiccups along the way, but like if you keep up that consistency level of showing up and essentially doing your best every day, then you will get there. It's just a period of time on how long that takes.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Everybody who I speak to who's kind of been in the fitness industry, and quite often they start taking steps like you're doing into different industries as well, because a lot of the actual skills that you pick up working in a service-based industry like this translate into other areas of business as well. And you often see people kind of do that, especially, you know, if you start viewing fitness as your product and you're a business person, you know, the sales around it, the processes around it. So like you've been talking about putting policies and procedures and processes into place. You can apply that to sort of any industry. But one of the good things that people don't realize about people who work in the fitness industry and any service-based industry is that every year you don't gain 20 or 30 clients. You gain 20 or 30 connections, contacts that you can call upon for different things, professionals who are working in different parts of, you know, different industries and different parts of life. They are coming to you as their fitness expert, and you're giving them value from that front, but they will be a professional in their own right, and they'll probably be able to bring other things to you as well. So you can probably think on, just off the top of your head now, people that you've worked with in a fitness capacity as their trainer or their gym owner or whatever it might be, who actually you've been able to do stuff with outside of fitness as well.
Massively.
Which is...
So a lot of what I've done, obviously the renovations I've done in the gym recently, everyone that's I've needed something from have been clients. Right. The new doors came from a client. Nice. The rewire client, the shower install client, like all the repairs and stuff, another client. So it's all people that I've worked with that years ago, when I've originally got the place, going back to that, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I didn't have that network. I didn't have that, them connections, like you say. It is massively. And I think being a personal trainer is a good spark for anyone to go into and having multiple businesses, because of the nature of the business, is getting to know people, and you'll know yourself, is like network is everything. You know, like if you didn't have a back end, you wouldn't be where you are now. 100%, yeah. And when you can create, because what is network? Network is building relationships. Like network is not just knowing someone to talk to. It's actually knowing that person
Yeah,
and
being
being
able to call
comfortable
upon
with
them,
that person,
yeah.
and then being comfortable with you. So the nature of being a personal trainer, just like I would imagine like a hairdresser would, or like something that's
Service-based
provided.
industries where you're speaking to a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life. The good thing about personal training I found is that it's quite a low barrier entry professional service. So you don't really need to go and do an expensive course to get into it, but the clientele are typically going to be good people to know because, you know, pretty much everybody gets their haircut. Pretty much everybody goes for those sort of treatments and things. Whereas with personal training, it is a bit more of a premium product. It's not everybody who does it. So it's quite good in the sense that the network that you build tends to be people that work in professional services as well.
Yeah.
You can like really like call upon them for kind of advice and things.
Yeah.
And the advice alone is really, really valuable. I think that people don't always take into consideration how valuable advice can be because, you know, unless you're in circles with people who can actually give you good advice, you might not have even had real good, you know, objective advice coming from a place of years of experience and things that people have seen, especially from a business perspective. How valuable is it to sit down with someone for half an hour, 45 minutes, who's done something that you would like to do?
Yeah. The best example I can give of that would be, I think it was just after I'd reopened after COVID, and I was struggling. You know, it's not all plain sailing. I was struggling with, I was losing clients. I think what had happened was, that we came back to spending money, and you know, like lockdown was a huge opportunity. I saw it as a huge opportunity for me because people were prioritizing their health more.
Yeah.
Then when it came back to that gym setting, and they were out going on able to book holidays, they were spending more on, you know, going out, you know, getting drinking and stuff like that. And
yeah.
money became less readily available for those people. So
and people weren't getting furloughed. People are losing their jobs as well after
exactly.
lockdown. People's job opportunities were being reduced. Recruiters weren't working as much because there wasn't as much
and
like
they
job
were trying to cut
opportunities.
costs,
Like everyone was tightening their belts. Yeah.
So obviously then that filtered through to the people, and I did start to lose like clients rapidly. And then I spoke to a client who was a financial advisor, and he basically just said, he still trains with us now, Steve, and he basically just said, what were you doing at the start that got you all these clients in the first place? And I just went, well, you know, social media. He went, well, you haven't took any videos of me training. Like, it starts now. And then that was the light bulb of just like, stick to the basics.
Yeah.
Trust the process, and then it'll happen for you.
Control the things that you can control on a daily basis that aren't going to give you the returns straight away, but they will after a while.
Like going out with a client, right? Now, I was obviously, you know, going out drinking or whatever with like people you're associated with in business can be a bit of a risk. But I see it as something that is solidifying your relationship with that person. So if I can go out for a pint with a client, I'll be straight there. Or I'll, you know, if you can go for coffee with someone, or, you know, you can be at their birthday and stuff like that. Like, these things make a huge difference. And that's what, again, creates that network and that trust.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to that is, without that network, I wouldn't have had that advice. And to be honest, it's a dark place, isn't it? Like, I was thinking, do I keep this going? Do I you know, just go back to like working on someone else's gym or on their gym floor? And it was touch and go at that point, because it's all about mindset, and my mindset was on the downward spiral. And that one conversation with that person that had done it and been there brought me back to and got me here. Do you know?
It's so important. I have people that I can just call if I feel like things aren't going that well, who I know have got similar sort of things going on, and just soundboard ideas with them, just get their advice on it, or, you know, maybe listen to what they're going through and see if I can help them with anything. I find that to be really beneficial, like trying to help somebody else through what they're going through. So, you know, that financial advisor, it might have actually helped him or will help him in the future. The fact that he was able to kind of sit with you and go through that with you, you know, that might be something that sometimes it can help people. You can think of better ideas when you're thinking of them for somebody else.
Right.
It's like everyone gives really good relationship advice, don't they? Even people who are in terrible relationships.
Rather than different date themselves.
Exactly, because you can give objective advice. You can step outside of your own self and you can give people real good advice for them in that moment. And then that advice can filter back to yourself and you can start taking your own good advice.
Yeah.
So everybody can give other people good advice. Sometimes it's good to give other people advice because then you can kind of subconsciously listen to your own words.
Or the other side of it as well, which you'll probably find, like, as we're talking about that, is it not quite good when you've got someone that you see to be, that you would aspire to be where they're at and however long, and then they're saying that they go through the exact same problems that you go through.
I love it.
Sometimes it just solidifies it in your head that you're there and you're doing it.
The best one I heard, I know a guy who's got a massive company, smashing it. He's actually sold his company now for, many, many, many millions. And he just said, it doesn't get easier. You just get further into the jungle and the things that are trying to kill you and eat you are bigger. And that made me feel so good.
Aye.
I was like, holy shit, if you saying, he even said Warren Buffett's got money problems too. They're just bigger than yours.
Yeah.
Like,
imagine having 100,000 staff.
yeah,
The
their
stress
problems are just
that they'd be going through.
their problems are just bigger.
Yeah.
And like, I love that. The problems don't get any easier. You just get deeper into the jungle and the things in there are just bigger and just trying to eat you still. And it's good because like, you can probably think like before COVID or before you had the gym, think about the sort of problems that would put you on edge. Do you know what I mean? The sort of problems that would make you feel uncomfortable or that you would like think about. Like there's things that I can think of 6 or 7 years ago that would just make my stomach sink.
Aye.
Letters, phone calls about certain things. Now I'd go and I'd go, not asked.
Yeah.
And I would literally just move on.
Aye.
I would just, because I'd have seen that before and I'd know that it's not a problem. Or like someone would say something and I would just be like, oh yeah, that's fine. Or I'll deal with it. I'll call them, put a call in. Hi, this, that and the other. Based on experience, I know that I can put that call in. It's more than anything, it's the uncertainty, isn't it, that makes you feel sick. So speaking to someone who's done it before and them alleviating some of that uncertainty by saying, I've been through it. And if they've been through it and they're still here, then you know it's something that you can get through.
Yeah. And you'd never think that, like when you're speaking to someone, there's someone in the business meeting that I go to, and he's absolutely flying. He owns a huge electrical, I'm not sure if it's engineering or some sort of electronics based company.
Right.
And he done a presentation on what his business was, and I mean he drives a Maserati and his second car's a Range Rover. Like he's where kind of you aspire
like
to get to when you get into business.
Of course.
And some of the stuff he said and the journey he's been on and that he's still going on was eye opening. And the fact that he still struggles now with all the stuff that I struggle with.
Yeah.
And it was a sort of like realization moment of kind of just to embrace it. Like I say that success in business is not based about how many times you succeed. It's about being able to embrace failure. Because out of even as scaling it back to, if you're trying to like me trying to get members now, out of every person that is inquiring or every person that's saying yes and gets a membership, there's 6 or 7 no's. Do you know? And it's about putting them no's into the back of your head and just kind of getting on to the next one and going and keep going. Yeah.
It's how you view them as well. Like you don't necessarily even have to view them as a failure. You can just view the, as a percentage of wins or, this is the percentage of my close rate that I expect to see. And sometimes the way that you kind of phrase things and sometimes the way that you look at things has a massive impact on how positive you are. Because then it's, I saw someone saying, it's not, like you said there, it's not about how many times you fail or how many times you succeed. It's about success is going from failure to failure with the same level of optimism. And it's just being able to just get a no, get something that really kicks you in the groin and just being like, oh shit, well that wasn't great, but I've also got these other things on.
Yeah,
so I'm just going to put my effort into there.
Yeah.
Literally, like there's still other opportunities coming in. It's good that I even was in the position to get this far and I can use that as a bit of, experience and I'll know what to say next time. And I've been in these sort of situations before. So, just stay in touch with them because something might change.
Well, that's it. And you said there, I've been in this position before. I actually said to my last the other day, I said there was an issue with a few different things, and I like me personally, I take it down downward spiral for a little bit, and I know that, and I'll be like, right, you get in your own thoughts, and then a couple hours later, I'll have brought myself back out of it. So I just need to be left at that point. And then when I brought myself back out, she said, oh, like, how are you feeling now? And I just said, I said, well, I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I've got these problems. Do you know?
Yeah, good problems to have.
Good problems to have. But then if you think about like how you, as you said, mindset and like for every failure, there's an opportunity. Do you know, when the stock markets are down, that's your time to buy in. Yeah. Most people are pulling away. Do you know? So you've got to try and like count your blessings in that fact, and like you say, keep up that enthusiasm, because that's what's got you to where you are, and that'll take you further than that. Yeah.
So what was your transition like then, from being self-employed to a business owner? Because I know that there's a lot of things that kind of come into that, and some people think that self-employed and owning a business, although there is a lot of similarities, and you know, technically when you do own a business, you are classed as self-employed on certain things, tax sort of things, but there is a big difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. What have you found to be the biggest kind of challenges?
So I think self-employed, you create a job for yourself. When you're a business owner, you've created a job for other people. Nice. It's kind of, that's how I would define it, is the difference. And the problems I've had when getting the gym, like from that day one, I was still in that create a job mindset. So it was me that was doing everything. It was me that was, you know, it's been me that, you know, funding it through my PT money eventually until I had enough that was covering it, and then turning that into a profit. Like all of that was still my job mindset. When changing the business model and I was ready to then step up to that and create jobs for people and create processes that were going to last. The difference was that I prioritized the people around us rather than myself. So that's kind of what I found the major differences is that I was then making sure that the people I've got now are happy enough and steady enough for me to then make that transition. So it's about having that network, but then keeping that network happy enough, or solidifying that network as well. Right. So that's how I found the transition was quite easy, because of the change in mindset. It wasn't that, you know, like I'd looked into like certain stuff and being a limited company director and like all of this, and it used to mind boggle us even when I did have the gym, because I was running it as a sole trader. Yeah. But then once I you know, built my network up and I started to learn, as you say, from other people, it was the mindset that changed, not the people, if that makes sense. It was using them people in the right way.
And how have you found, obviously, bringing other people in, you have to align everybody's vision, which can obviously be very, very difficult in an industry which has got, you know, self-employed aspects to it. How difficult has it been kind of trying to not only get other people to work with you, but also, you know, basically do what you're asking them to?
They never will.
Right.
No one will ever have the same passion and same vision as you. Of course,
yeah.
But you need to accept that. And, you know, you need to accept there's certain boundaries, but you need to accept that it's never going to be the way you want it to be. Of course. You have to then sort of like be open to change and trust. Yeah. You've got to be able to trust people, and you've kind of got to trust yourself. You've got to trust the processes you put in place.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I think that's a difficult one for people, isn't it? Because they just expect that other people will work as hard as them. But obviously, if they were going to do that, then they would have just set up their own place or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
They're not necessarily in the same stage of their life. Just like before, when you worked in somebody else's gym, you were at a different stage of your life, and you weren't going to work as hard as they were on their project or their goal sort of thing.
Or I just didn't see it in the same way.
Yeah, of course.
Do you know, like going into work was going into work, whereas like I go into the gym now and there's a million things going on that I need to be doing, and I'm seeing it in different angles. You know, I'm thinking about making it inclusive and making it good enough for everyone, and trying to, you know, because in the fitness industry you seem to have different gyms have different functions. So like you've got a bodybuilding gym, you've got a CrossFit gym, whereas like mine, I want it to be open for everyone, and I want everyone to be comfortable in that. So I'm going around the gym, I'm thinking, oh, I could hire a plant there, you know, and I'm thinking, we'll make this a bit more welcoming and stuff like that, you know, and like stuff that I wouldn't go into a gym I've been at working and be like, oh, I wonder if he's going to hire some.
Yeah, you wouldn't be asked, would you? You'd just be cracking on,
Yeah, so I'm seeing it more from an outside perspective.
Yeah.
Now I'm further on the inside, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but it is just about incentivizing the people to the point where they want it to be successful. I think that's something that's very difficult when you're setting up a business. You're bringing other people in, but they have to have an aligned vision in order for people to kind of, you know, be invested in it and see it as more than just a job.
Yeah.
Which is obviously what I think a lot of people, when they take that transition from being self-employed to being a business owner, it's the hardest thing, because they probably would hold those people to a bit of a higher standard, probably because they would feel like they could have been held to a higher standard. Like, the reason you're in the position that you're in now is because you're willing to go above and beyond. You'd probably have went above and beyond no matter what sort of environment you were in. It just so happens that this is your own business, and that's the natural steps that it's taken. However, I feel like if you were involved in something else, you would have went above and beyond. But those characteristics have led you to have your own business. Yeah. Whereas sometimes people will be like, I know I do it. I do 100% guilty of it, because I'll be like, you should be trying to get things perfect. Like, when I've got people working on things with me, and the guys, you know, doing what we do here, you should want it to be perfect. I don't like, you should want it to be perfect. It's still, even though it's the company's work, it's still individually what you're doing. Like, it's your job. Yeah, you're producing it. I want you to take onus and, you know, look at it objectively and be like, that could be better. Yeah. So, but obviously it's very difficult, because that sort of mentality has got me to where I am today. And you get
striving
people,
for perfection.
But I've got people who work for me now who totally have that in them as well, where they're striving for that perfection.
So that's what I was going to get onto, is seeing. Look, no one's perfect, and no one ever will be. But it's seeing the potential. It's seeing the potential in people. Yeah, definitely. And if you can kind of see a little bit of what you had in the people that you're taking on, then you know there is scope for mess ups here and there, and
of course,
like the bigger picture is that these people are essentially going to be like sort of living what you already have.
100%.
If they've got that potential, of course.
Yeah, it is just it is. I'd say it's the most difficult thing. Staff and like getting that right and like aligning it, because I also want to be as relaxed as possible, because I don't like people on my case. That's not how I work well. So I try to be as relaxed as possible. But yeah, I was interested to see how you were finding that kind of transition, because I know that it's a very difficult one. It's one that probably isn't often spoken about, because, you know, not everybody has the luxury of being in a position one day to have people work in their business. But
I've found that the way I did it. So the team over the last 4.5 years has been, you know, like all over the shop in terms of people who've had in, and and there's been a couple that have really stuck around as well. Yeah, trial and error sort of thing. And I've made this transition when I feel like the team's been ready. So I've been ready since I got the place. This is what I originally wanted when I got the place. Yes, it took us however long to get there, but it was the team that I needed to be ready. So I was fortunate enough to have good people around us. I've got a good set of PTs that are you know, I've got a good amount of clients, and the network's been built up through that. But the tough bit was then kind of instilling that, like, actually there's a bit more rules to the place now, and the model's completely changed, and you know, there was a little bit of backlash from that, but that's natural. That's going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, I've changed everything completely, and there's certain things that I can't do with my clients now. So I'm trying to lead from the top, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really important as well, isn't it? To kind of set that tone, and even when you know that you can be trusted to do something in a certain way, it's not the way that you've said that we're going to do it, so you need to do it as well. So what's next for you now then? What's on the horizon? What's the plan?
So it's continue building, get the gym. I want it to make it more automated, where you know, the process that I'm putting in place, I'm starting to see a little bit more time back for myself.
Right.
And then once I get to that point, I've got a few Well, actually, at the minute, our business is about opportunity. So I'm going into the property side of things at the minute, through some, as we said, network I've built and stuff. So I've kind of been introduced to an opportunity at the moment, which really I'd like to get the gym sorted, then go into that. But
yeah,
you've got to take opportunities as it is. So
nothing comes at the perfect time.
Yeah. So it'll be the plan. Putting it out there is get the gym where I want it. Do little bits of property stuff as well at the same time. Then I've got a network in Ireland as well. I'm going to set up Body Hacks in Ireland within the next 5 years.
What does that mean? Sorry.
So I've got like my lass is from there, so we're there quite regularly.
Ireland.
In Ireland, yeah.
In Ireland.
Northern Ireland.
Body Hacks in Ireland. Right. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. I thought you said a networking island.
A networking island.
A networking. Island.
I'm just going to create an island.
I thought genuinely that's what I thought.
I'm thinking big, like.
I was thinking, in Ireland, a Body Hacks network. So just a gym there, or just
I want to set up Body Hacks over there.
Perfect, right? Okay.
Start a franchise, the business eventually. Once
that makes a lot more sense than like I was thinking like Richard
Branson.
Put everyone
on an island.
Yeah, I was thinking like Richard Branson-esque, like your own island. I was going to say Jeffrey Epstein, but not that sort of island.
I'm not going there.
No, so in Ireland, the country.
Yeah, I've got a network in Northern Ireland. I should have made it more concise. No, that's
fine. It's my fault.
But yeah,
that's why I asked what that means.
Yeah, that's the plan anyway. Is to open up over there.
Is fitness big over there?
There's a gap in the market.
Right. For like
which I've
gyms.
Seen from going over there and stuff. Yeah,
is it like a small gym that you do like
what we do here?
Right.
Like I had an events company when I like after I finished uni in Liverpool, and look, granted that went tits up, but I'd seen what they do in the Newcastle event scene and try to take it over there and seen that gap in the market. I've kind of done that. Like over there, as I've been going over, I've been seeing little bits that could be, improved from certain gyms they've got over there or services that they're providing, stuff like that. So once the Newcastle gyms, where I want it to be, then I'll be hopefully opening up over there as well.
Expand. Oh wow.
Yeah. So
that sounds really exciting.
Yeah, it's just about getting the processes put in place so that I can actually franchise it.
Yeah, so that you've got an actual business model and all the policies and procedures, processes in place to the point where you could just hand it to somebody else. So is that the next step, to be able to just let somebody else take the reins in Newcastle?
Yeah.
So that you can see that works autonomously without your kind of input?
Massively. Yeah, that's when I'm saying automated, that's exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
Is trying to get to the point where I can go on holiday and things don't go to shit.
Yeah.
Do you know?
The fitness industry is really good for a lot of things. One of the things that it isn't so good for is being able to step away from the actual work and still get paid. It's like, a lot of people think like personal training and the fitness industry, it is a very, attractive job because you're doing something you enjoy. You're in, one of the best environments that you could be in. It's an environment that you would choose to be in during your leisure time. So if you can get paid to be there, it's really great. One thing that people need to factor in though when they're taking the jump into the fitness industry is that you're not getting paid when you're not there. And I guess that's why we've seen a lot more kind of rise and prevalence in the online training world. But yeah, if you can have something like what you're doing that manages itself when you're not there.
Yeah, exactly.
And you still make money.
I mean, you've obviously been in the fitness industry probably as long as I have. And like, when it's not going on the holiday, that's the issue. Like it's fine going on the holiday, but then it's what you spend on the holiday. Then it's what you're not earning when you're away. Then it's getting your clients back. Normally, if you go on a 2-week holiday, it's going to take you like 5 weeks to get your business back to where it was because of that motivation factor and the fact that you are putting people through pain daily. So it takes a lot for them to, once they're out of the routine, to then get back into that routine.
Yeah.
Do you know? You kind of putting people through an uncomfortable environment to then create a more comfortable life for them. So you can see why it demotivates people when they've had a couple of weeks off. So it's trying to get to the point where the business itself is running when I'm not there. So I think that's the sign of being able to of running a successful business.
Yeah, of course. No, that totally makes sense. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of exciting plans, and it's good to see the church still Still going strong.
Thriving.
Yeah,
Thriving.
mate, it is thriving, mate. It's really good to
Thriving.
see. 4.5 years. I didn't realise it was 4.5 years.
Yeah.
So you've been a personal trainer for 10 years, did you say?
10, yeah. It'll be 11 in September.
Why did you do yours?
So I did mine years ago when I was in Liverpool. I did it when I was at uni.
Right, okay.
So I literally did the course in 2 days.
Yeah, nice. Nice.
Just blasted it out.
Yeah.
Might have already had clients at that point.
Yeah, fair enough. So you did the course and then you mainly started PTing when you came back here?
No, I was doing it there. Yeah.
You were PTing in
I was doing it
Ireland?
there, but I was doing the event stuff at the same time. And yeah, I was loving it. I did really well. I was at a commercial gym at first.
What was it? Which gym?
The gym.
The gym.
The gym group.
Fair.
It was great in terms of, but you really had to be. You could get eaten alive in a gym like that, you know.
Commercial gyms or private gyms? What's best to start out?
I'm going to say private.
Private gym to get started.
Because of to be a personal trainer, you have to be seen as someone that a client would strive to be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it might be a bit controversial, this, but like, if you're washing machinery and you're sweeping the floor, like, you're then less likely to look like someone that client would then want to put their money into.
It's less glamorous working in a commercial
way
gym.
less glamorous, and you're actually losing a lot of time. So I was finding when I left mine, I was doing hours for rent, which is great, but the rules that they put in place is you can't train clients, which is not in my gym. I'll let them do what they want on shift, you know. But the hours for rent thing, when you're doing 20 hours a week and you get busy as a PT, say you're doing 40 hours of clients a week and you can't train it, you've got to then do an extra 20. You're doing 60 hours a week for very little in return.
But by the time you got 40 clients, would you not just drop your shifts and just pay rent?
Well, that would be 40 hours, not 40 clients. You know, I say some might do 3 a week and stuff like that. And,
right, okay.
But yeah, like you would, but then
you're looking
like 600-700 quid a month rent.
Right, okay, yeah.
You can go and get a little private studio for that.
See, I'd say starting a commercial maybe if you don't have anybody, and then build your client base over and then move to a private. I didn't. I started at the church.
You went private?
Yeah, well, I just started there. So I started there, but I was able to do the classes.
But do you not find, though, it's like I started at the opposite of what you're saying, and we're both saying start at the different place.
Right, okay.
So it is tough to start, is kind of what it is, but starting is the main thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. And whatever you do from there, you're in a position to start making choices. Yeah. And you can change as well. You can go to a commercial one, and then if you don't like it, you can go to a private one, and vice versa. I think the benefits from the private perspective are that you've got more freedom, but obviously there's less shop window activity. You know, there's not as many people seeing you. Yeah, they're not seeing you clean the fucking gym equipment, but they're like, do you know what I mean? They're just not seeing you at all.
Aye.
So like, I was lucky enough that I went into somewhere that I was able to do the classes, and I was able to build up my reputation by kind of helping James with his clients and kind of going from there. So I think definitely like a setup like yours would be good for someone to come into, and you know, there's classes on, there's this, that and the other, you're there, there's Peter, do you know what I mean? They can start like feeding off you and stuff like that. So yeah,
I do think as well, like it depends on which, like who you, as we've just mentioned all the way through the podcast, is who you're spending your time with.
Yeah.
Do you know, like every PT that comes through the doors at my place, I will help in some sort of capacity. You know, like I'll either give them clients directly or help them get there so they know exactly what they're doing. You know, if you went to certain people haven't got that priority. You know, like the different buildings or different gyms have different things that they do for the people in there. So I do think that like selecting the person you want to be around, more than the kind of whether it's commercial or private.
Yeah, go and find someone who you'd like to, who you aspire to be like, and go and see if you can work out of their studio or work with them, because you've got a better chance of getting to where they are if you're spending more time with them.
Yeah, I think even then on that perspective, is I was really lucky to have a really good gym manager when I was at that commercial gym. So like then, you know, I ended up booming in 3 weeks because I'd seen, like I had someone good there supporting us. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's very much more about the people you're around. Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. I think that's one thing that's similar, that's the same for fitness, business, whatever it is.
get around people who are doing what you want to be doing, regardless of what it is that you want to do. If you go and spend time with people who are doing that, who are actively in there, succeeding at it, you are going to, you know, whether it's via fucking osmosis or whatever, you're going to end up doing that.
Become your circle.
You're going to end up doing those things. If you spend your time around people who are getting pissed every weekend, you're going to start getting pissed every weekend.
Yeah, definitely.
If you spend your time around people who aren't really up to much, you're going to find yourself up to less and less. So
that's probably one of the main things that schools teach, really, isn't it? Is that like, if you're in a bad crowd, you're going to be seen as bad.
Yeah.
Do you know? So it works the other way.
Yeah.
So I do think definitely network's key, but also like use that correctly, like speak to people, put yourself out there. Like, you know, I used to get really, like a year ago, I would have been really uncomfortable doing this podcast.
Yeah.
But I kind of dropped all that because it's like, I would never do talking videos or anything like that because I'd be thinking, oh, people be like, you know, taking the piss or whatever and stuff like that. And that probably does happen.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're not going to put food on your table.
Mate, that's so yeah. When I first started, like, when I first started in the fitness industry, first started personal training, started putting like videos on and trying to grow my network and stuff, like, people would literally tell you, they'd be like, oh, your videos are so cringy, like, I had to unfollow you, all this sort of thing.
Aye.
Those people, you don't like, they were never going to be.
You'd rather filter
anyway.
them out. Exactly.
Yeah. It's so interesting that they would actually say stuff like that because nobody ever hates on you who's doing more than you.
Absolutely.
That's one thing that I found because they don't have time, and B, they know what it takes.
And they're that focused on what they're doing. They're not bothered about what anyone else is doing.
Yeah.
Do you know, that's the bit. If you're doing well or you're trying to do well in something, why would you care what anyone else is doing?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I do think put yourself out there. That's probably the most important thing is
make the videos,
network, and put yourself out there.
Yeah, 100%. Mate, thank you so much for coming in.
It's been brilliant.
It's really good to see what you're up to. It's really good to see everything going so well over there. It's going from strength to strength, and it's
Appreciate that, mate.
Love
Thank you for having us on.
No worries, mate. Fun. Until next time. Cheers, mate. Wrap that up.
Bang on, that.
What have I done there? Fucking hell.
Did you get that on?